It's time for Dads Making a Difference, powered by First Things First. This transformative show will help you learn how to handle the stress of fatherhood, how to better relate to your child, navigate the child support system, and all things that come with being a dad. With your hosts, Reggie Madison and James Frankie Woods.
Today, we are excited to welcome Chattanooga City Councilwoman Demetrus Coonrod. She's a phenomenal councilwoman. She's always out in the community, talking to people, listening.
Right.
But she don't just stop there. She's a woman of action.
Yes.
Who's determined to give voice to the disenfranchised. She's not just in some ivory tower, looking from down, telling everybody what they need, but she's out there amongst the people in the streets. And she cares. She wants to see positive change in the community, and we love it. But not only is she a councilwoman,
Right.
all right, she's a speaker, a certified life coach,
Keep going.
an entrepreneur,
Yes, sir.
an author,
Ooh.
has a book out called Prison to Purpose, A Past That Shaped My Future. And so we are happy, Demetrus, to have you on Dads Making a Difference today. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing phenomenal. Man, you know what? But hearing your intro, I'm like, wait a minute. They talking about me?
Yes, we are.
Is that me with that? Because it was a time in my life where, the series of wording wouldn't have been associated with
Gotcha.
me, But, hey, I'm glad God put me in a different position.
Oh, man.
And it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Well, cool. Well, the reason we want to have you on the show today, because we know you see firsthand the impact of fathers and father absence in the community. And as people listen this morning, I want dads to leave encouraged.
Definitely.
Because they know how important they are. And we want everyone else that aren't fathers who's listening as well to learn why it's important to encourage dads, to empower dads, and
Absolutely.
to make space for men in our community. So before we jump into all that, help us learn a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about Demetrus Coonrod.
Yeah, so you know what? Sometimes the media butcher Demetrus Coonrod, and that's okay too. But hey, I'm a human being that has the passion to serve, right? And I honestly believe that God placed me on this earth, to give birth to that very thing. Is to serve the people who are disenfranchised, marginalized, the forgotten about people, the ones that are often unwanted, unseen, and unheard. Right. And everything that I do, I want to make sure that I'm giving them a voice to elevate them, not only just meet them where they are, but I want to move them from where they are to a better place of prosperity for them and their entire family. So yeah, that's what I do.
So where did that passion come from?
It came from my grandmother. I watched it. Anything that she done, it was just like inspiring. If we didn't have food or anything, I watched this lady have a pack of pinto beans, and she fed about 20 kids. And it's like, man, you mean to tell me that one pack of beans fed all of us? And we wasn't hungry, you know what I mean? She just made it happen. And most kids that I grew up with, they was eating steak and all the good food. And here it is that we had to share this one pack of beans. And I just watched her every day. When she woke up, her foot touched the ground. She woke up praying.
Right.
She prayed over us before we left. Every day we had a hot meal. It was just, she was showing up. And Grandma, she couldn't drive. She didn't have transportation. So everywhere she went, she walked.
Wow.
Or either she caught a cab, to get wherever it is. And she would always say, if it was something that we needed, Grandma, man, it could be the sock hop, or we selling anything, or whatever was going on at school. And if she didn't have it, she made a way. And she'll pop up at the school. We like, oh, Grandma, we weren't left out at that particular time. So she was my inspiration, and I watched her serve, in the church, in the community, whatever she could do. She'll just take people off the street into the house. Whatever she had, she was willing to share with them. So that's where I got it from.
Wow. That's good. That was back in the day. They didn't have any excuses.
Nah.
They didn't make any excuses. They had plenty of excuses they could have used.
See, that's back in the day when the community was a family.
That's it.
Highland Park was a family.
Yep. And we've gotten away from that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm thinking about them pinto beans that she said.
Look, I done got hungry right now.
But
Just
here's the thing. Digress for a second.
Gotcha.
Them grandmamas know how to make pinto beans taste good.
Yes, Lord. Oh my God.
All right, let's get back on task. Go ahead, James.
So this is my question to you. Where are you from, and what was home like for you?
I'm here I was born here and raised here in Chattanooga. And, I kind of bounced around in different neighborhoods because both my parents got addicted to crack cocaine and kind of took us, from one neighborhood to another. But primarily we were in Highland Park. So from Highland Park, and then we end up getting in City Code projects and, just kind of moving around. But that environment, I remember once my dad and mom, they got divorced, like my childhood was it just went downhill from there because I didn't have that father figure, that security, and it just spiraled down the wrong path.
And so we know you've been in prison. You were in prison for a period of time, and so you have a different perspective,
right?
And so talk about how that perspective has shaped your life and how you serve.
Well, the people that I serve, I'm always reminded is that if we're not in the problem or going to where it's at to help correct the problem, like that's where it starts. Like I can talk about all the issues that's happening within our community, but if I'm afraid to go exactly where it's at and change the path that this population of people is on to get them on a better path, then I'm part of the problem too. But also growing up, once my dad got addicted to drugs, is that I saw my dad cycled in and out of prison. And I love my dad, and I wanted to be, he was a military vet. I wanted to go to the military. I wanted to do things like my dad did prior to him being addicted to drugs. And once I ended up in prison, I was like, oh man, did I admire my dad so much to where I followed the path and encounter incarceration just as my dad did? And will I come back outside of these walls being exactly how my dad currently is, or will this be a lesson to say, Coonrod, you can't go back out the same way that you are. So I chose not to come back out. And, and our relationship began to be improved because of the way that my thinking had changed.
That's interesting. So part of what I hear you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that even when your dad was kind of doing the dirt, you really kind of subconsciously admired him.
Yep.
And ended up following his footsteps as a result.
I did.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, that's a lot of things dads don't realize. Sometimes dads think, well, I hide it from you or I shield you from it or, but even if it's not good, like as his child, as his daughter especially, right? You look back and it's like, I was really kind of, that's what my dad did. I even if I know it's bad, I know it's like empowering me to do it because if he do it, I know I can do it.
Right.
I did it.
Definitely.
That was it. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And it affected the way that I viewed men. Because I would be, prior to my dad getting addicted to drugs, I would be like, oh man, my dad, he didn't do this or he didn't do that, so this guy shouldn't be doing that. So why isn't he opening up the door, or why isn't he, I would ask those kind of questions because that's the things that I saw my dad do, the positive things that he done when my mother and father were married. And then when I saw guys that I was dating not doing that, or they was talking crazy to me, or just be, I was like, man, my dad he didn't act like that. Like, why am I dealing with a knucklehead?
Right.
And even when my dad was out in the world on drugs, he would say, baby girl, you don't deserve to be treated like that. Why are you dealing with these knuckleheads? Now, baby girl, don't make me come get my gun now. And I'd be like, no, Dad, no.
Right. Dad gonna be dad.
He was gonna protect.
Yeah, dad gonna be dad.
Going to protect.
Come on. So this is my next question to you. What motivated you to run for a Chattanooga City Council position, and what do you hope to accomplish as a city council member?
Man, what motivated me, James and Reggie, is when I returned home from prison, and my environment was exactly the same way 120 months later. And when I looked around and I said, I'm going back to prison because this all I know.
Right.
Like, what is it that needs to change in my community? Not only for me not to recidivate, but for my people that's in my community. And so I began, and I remember when my grandmother on election day, she got dressed up and she was ready to go vote. And I was like, well, Grandmama, who is these people? I don't ever see them coming in our neighborhood, but here it is, you about to go vote. And she go on to tell me about all the people who was on the ballot. And I was like, do you even know how they look? You know, I was just, I began to get so frustrated as we walked up to the community center to go, because at that time I couldn't vote. And then, so when they got to talking about it, I started hearing people come up and say, hey, we going to vote and support this person. Or I saw the signs, and I began to research those individuals. And I'm like, man, so you done been serving X amount of years, like my community is still declined, and I'm still seeing the same people. I done went to prison, and I'm still, my environment's still the same way. What can I do to get involved to make it better? Like, I'm not just going to put it on them. I'm going to assume the responsibility for my community to say, hey, I want to be the one who's going to spark the fire in my community to make it change. And as I begin to, you know, get well abreast of the different legislation or the different issues that was in our community, hey, and I'm like, well, this is why we go into prison, because we have these races you know, create the legislation for us that's going to keep me going to prison, who's going to keep our families destroyed, who's going to keep, you know, it just on, and it just festered into, I was like, you know what, I'm finna do something about it.
Right.
And so once I decided it was able to run for office and I gave it a shot, you know, my thing really wasn't to build houses at that time. I wanted to see what legislation that I could change or implement that would help improve families, because I see that families was hurting. And if I can get out and change the mindset of the people to not just be a vote, but to be a voice for your community and show them how you can change your entire household, that's a win for me.
That's good. I love that.
Powerful
I
stuff.
love that. So as you're out more and more in the community and out talking to people, trying to affect change, do you see a lot of male presence? Do you see a lot of men involved? Do you see a lot of fathers and what's the difference when you do?
Well, and majority of my community that I serve is more impoverished, has a lack of investment in the community. So I don't, in those areas, I don't see a lot of fathers. But when I go like to Missionary Ridge and those kind of areas, or if I'm coming through parts of Highland Park that's been, you know, redeveloped, I see a lot of fathers in those homes, and they're more, you know, caring and actively involved. And with those kids, I see, you know, improvement in their school attendance, you know, the grades, the behaviors, and different things like that. Their emotions, they're able to handle those emotions. But in the kids that are in the impoverished area, without the fathers, there's a lot of disruption in the home. And you see, and I got to be honest with you, it's not just the lack of the father, it's the lack of the mother too that is starting to be seen. But because of that absence of the father, you can see the decline in the community. You can see, you know, the public safety is just not there anymore in the community. We see how it's playing out in schools, the behaviors that's in school. We see how mental health is, you know, just rampant now in our community, the drug use and the teen pregnancy. You know, you can see apparently that when I see these kids, I can automatically say, I know that there is not a father involved.
Wow. Hear that, fathers? Hear that, my man. So do you see an effect on safety, crime, quality of life, schools and prison, etc.? Like in your community, do you see that a lot too as well?
Absolutely. I see that. And I also see that we celebrate the fathers being absent in our communities, and we cheer and clap. Oh, girl, I got my food stamps, or I got my welfare benefits. Oh, I'm going to put that sucker on child support because he going to pay me. I'm going to this. We celebrate the father being absent rather than embracing co-parenting if you're not together.
Right.
And we, and I'm just going to be honest, you know, the system continue to perpetuate fathers not being in the home.
Right.
The way that it's designed, you know, you have these certain programs that people will look at as black women to say, okay, this is going to help me to improve my life. But if you're not taking advantage of those things and have a plan that within a year or two that I'm going to be more of a productive, financially stable person, and it's going to continue to keep you separated, and we continue to fall into that same slave mentality of separation of our fathers, and it's not creating a strong family bond. And now, you know, people look at family differently now, But no matter how you do it and you interact, you can never remove or replace the father, the actual father, the man, for that child.
Right. So how do we as a community begin to do better valuing the men, valuing fathers?
I think, Reggie, we got to be more inclusive in everything that we do. And we have to, the child support system needs to do better with including the kids. And also, it really goes back to the conception. For me, is that the father needs to be involved from the day that child was conceived till they come out the womb of the mother, to the signing of that birth certificate. To they have to be included in all of that, and judges have to say, okay, you're the father. Like, decisions need to be made with both parents, not just one of what the mother says goes. And okay, it's like, okay, but I'm the dad. Without the dad, you couldn't have got the baby. You know what I mean? So we have to be more inclusive with them. Schools should call them and interact with the dad too. They instantly call the mother.
Right.
Well, what if we call the dad? And I'll never forget the one time I acted a fool in school, and they called my grandmother, but my grandmama called my dad. But when my dad came up there and got a hold of me in that the clothes closet,
They don't remember
with a
clothes
belt.
closet, do they? They don't remember that.
But I came out of there with a whole new attitude.
Right.
They ain't have to call my grandmama no more again, But we don't ever interact and engage with those fathers. We make fathers feel as if they don't matter at all in the lives of our kids.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And so when you think about ways or think about how we are creating, environments that really value dads, have you seen any neighborhoods or any areas that you would say, man, they're doing a better job? Or have you seen any programs? Just, what have you seen that has been successful? And it may not even be in Chattanooga. It might be somewhere else. You all nationally traveled and all.
Right.
What I see that's successful in Chattanooga for us is the work that you all are doing in First Things First. And, that's what got my attention. Like, somebody finally has a program that's focusing on dads, or focusing on marriage. Like, we don't talk about that enough. And we got to start doing that. Like, it's okay to say, oh, we're going to take the kids to the jump park, or we're going to do this for all at-risk kids. But they're at risk because they're missing a parent.
Right.
And if we can have more father and child activities together, man, you know how that'll change that child's life.
Yes.
We can't just have donuts and dad once a year.
Right.
We can't just show up and say we're going to have a dad breakfast at church once a year. We got to have these things going all year long and be intentional about making sure we're targeting the at-risk kid with their dad.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I mean,
sense.
You think about it, a lot of dads, we don't value, like the schools, for instance, and what goes where. One, like you said, we don't call the dad, we call the mom. Right. We don't value just some of the activity, the playtime, and what that does to help a son or a girl develop confidence. And, and those are lots of times the things that the dads bring to the table.
Right. And as a father, a lot of men, I want to share this with y'all, man, just to hear you say this. Once you get rid of that shame and that guilt, then you become a great leader.
That's it.
You have to get rid of that shame and that guilt in order to be a great leader. And I have learned that, And just being around a bunch of positive leaders, then I got rid of my shame and my guilt. And that's what's making me step out and to become a better advocate for dads making a difference. You know what I mean? So,
which is a good point. You've worked a lot with justice-involved men and people in general. What are some of those barriers you see that those justice-involved, those personal demons, those personal barriers that, you see that often they need help walking through and overcoming?
Man, the number one thing is the hurt, the shame, that they have to get over that, because it's, oh, well, if my baby mama don't want me to see him, and I'm just not going to, but hey, sometimes you got to go that extra mile, and you got to fight for your child, right? You can't just be like, I'm going to go peep in the window at him while he sleep. Now, you got to be involved in his life before he pick up that gun, and before it leads to other things. But men are, facing those barriers of child support, losing their driver's license. They can't drive to work. Doors are being closed on them in the workforce because you've created this background that you have. Then you got restitution. So the collateral consequences that continue to follow them based on, because they got a child support case. Well, if we could create co-parenting, healthy co-parenting without, women destroying men, because ultimately that's the way I view it. Once you take that step to put them on child support because you're hurt, you're destroying a whole family. You're not just destroying that man, you're destroying his kid, right? Because they're going to put things in place that cause emotional damage for that kid. So sometimes you don't get the visitations like you need. They start using kids as the pawn against the dad. And to me, that's just not right for the dad, and then they get caught up in this system that you have a hard time getting out of.
So, and I'm going to give a qualifier to this, all right, before I ask. We know that there are some fathers that they're not doing right, okay? And so when I ask this question, there's going to be some ladies, some moms that's like, all right, we ain't talking about that.
We're not.
Why do you think, but in our work, we've seen a lot of what you're saying. We've seen a lot of moms that will use the kid as a pawn, that will use the support, the legal system, the child support system, to maintain a certain amount of power and control. Why do you think they do that?
I think because they're still, emotionally attached to that individual, and they've not had time to separate. So when we think about, being intimate with someone, those connections, and most women, and including myself, I've done it too, like once that relationship has ended, you immediately go to the next one.
Right.
But you've not had time to spiritually clean yourself to rid the attachments of the guy before.
Your soul is
But
attached
now
to
you
it.
still holding on to whatever you had with this one, and you mad, and oh, God forbid if he get with somebody else. Like, you really ready to, even if you done moved on, right? So it just take, building healthy relationships with each other so they can get to a point to co-parent, because that damages the child more than any woman could ever think of or imagine to be, but they're not looking at that. It's that you hurt me, or you not here for me, or you whatever the reason may be, so I'm going to fight you nailed it too and keep the kid away. Well, we got to be better stewards than that, right? We got to want to make sure that we're keeping our kids. Now, there are some fathers that may, women may feel like, listen, it's just, they're doing too much. I don't want to put my kids in harm's way.
Right.
And, so on and so forth. Or they're just not coming through, right? But then you have those dads that actually want to be a part of their kid lives.
Right.
And women just be like,
Go through the ringer with them.
yeah. And it's like, man, what is going on? So
we're gonna have a class for, you just broke up with your baby daddy. We need you to come to this class for a little spiritual cleansing.
right, cause
And we not laughing, y'all. We want y'all to understand this is just the truth.
it's the truth.
It's the honest truth.
And we need dads, because when you see what's unfolding in our community,
Man.
we need dads. All the homicides that's happening and just shootings and the behaviors that's being displayed, they're without a father. And mothers, our young men, mothers can't get a hold of these young guys.
Right.
They want their dad. Their dad needs to be there for them emotionally. They need to be able to hug them. They need to say, I love you. You know what I mean? They want to hear that, because they act out. And what they seeing is given to them as a moment of love is, we playing a video game, or I'm seeing you on the drugs. Like, all the negative stuff is associated with this is love. And me seeing you in a jumpsuit in jail, that's not love, but we equate that to love. And if I do the same thing that my dad did, it's going to give me a stripe. That's going to make my daddy love me more. But that's not what we need to be showing our kids.
That's good. So we got 4 questions. Last time's 5, but you're not a dad, so we want to ask you one of them.
Right.
We got 4 questions we'd like to ask everybody, and you may repeat some things that you said, because you've been real rich since you've been here, so I appreciate it. But go ahead, you want to fire the first one?
The first question is, what to you makes dads irreplaceable?
Man, dads are irreplaceable because, they build character of our young men. They, help women, like I said, decide, like, what type of men that they need to be dealing with. They deal with, provide security, that provide that safety no matter if your dad in your life or not, when you see that dad, that's going to provide some kind of sense of safety, some kind of security, like you feel protected, right? And some things, like that's just something that kids feel like a mother just not going to come through on a lot of times. Fathers, help with their cognitive enhancement. It's a lot of things that fathers do that would be irreplaceable.
That's good. What is one strong memory of something you ever did with your father?
Man, when he took me rappelling.
Really?
When he took me, I told you he was a vet, and so he liked to do stuff like that. And so we went to Fall Creek Falls. He took my sisters and I remember I was like, I don't want to go. And he showed me, how we had to anchor it down, and he did his first. It was like, baby girl, come on. That's what he called, baby girl, come on. You got this. And I'll never forget, I rappelled the first time, and then I was scared to go out and do it again. So he had to come up and get me like he was rescuing me. And I was like, oh, my dad's Superman.
Oh, man, I'm trying to hurry up because I know you got some stuff you want to share. What advice would you give your younger self?
Man, my advice would be to my younger self is that, listen, you don't have to go down that path, and it's not going to make you a woman to sleep with everybody.
Wow.
Like, make sure that you're using protection or abstaining from sex.
Gotcha.
Because you don't want to become a mother at an early age, not prepared to take care of kids.
That's good.
Good stuff.
So if we're gonna give you the mic for a second, any parting shots you want to share?
Right, share what you got going on with
yes.
Let the world know.
So we got going on is an organization called Rewake, and we help those families that are just as involved, right? And most people look at people, when you hear just as involved, as if it's just people who actually went to prison or they're just re-entering from that space, but it's bigger than that, gotcha. Right? So we're taking ownership of people who are leaving out of divorce situations, if you're dealing with evictions before, anything that you see yourself recycling in, right? We want to be that point of contact of help that helps support you and to get you back on the right path so you could be your very best version. So you can email me at reformctrl@gmail.com, or you can call me on my personal line, 423-314-9897. I'll give you my personal line because that's how connected I want to be with you to make sure that you're executing your very best for your family.
Say that email and phone number again.
It's reformctrl@gmail.com, and my phone number is 423-314-9897.
Okay, one more thing I got to say to you. I always like to give people their flowers. I've heard some stuff, and I've seen some stuff, but this is what I know. I grew up with you.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
So whatever they said, I know you.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of you, and I love you for what you're doing and what you motivated me to be today.
Thank you.
So just keep pushing, and I'm proud of you.
Thank you, James. I
You're
appreciate
welcome. Keep doing what you do.
Yes.
Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Absolutely, anytime.
You've been listening to Dads Making a Difference, powered by First Things First. Join us for our next episode right here